It is the end of the year, it's the end of 2022, so we are going to wrap up everything that Apple has released in 2022 because, might as well catch up with all the stuff that I've ignored while I've been missing. Want the latest Apple news, leaks and rumours? Subscribe and ring the bell. So today we're doing a tier maker and, it's the usual kind of thing. We're going to go through the year, we're going to go through all the stuff that Apple has released over that year and hopefully put them into some sort of order for what was best. Now, for some reason, the tier maker has rearranged everything into a stupid order, so we're going to go through my list up here. So we're starting off with the first releases of the year, which was at the Peak Performance event.
Good morning and welcome back to Apple Park.
March the 8th, 2022, and Apple released first and foremost the iPhone SE 5G. Now, what do we think of this? I'm going to say this was kind of meh. It wasn't exciting. I think we're going to put it in C. It's fine, but it's $429, so the price has gone up slightly compared to the previous year where it was $399. Yeah, there's inflation and things like that. I don't massively mind the increase in price. However, this has always been, the iPhone SE has always been either the first phone that people would buy from Apple, and I think at this point, if we're still giving people a phone that uses Touch ID instead of Face ID, and it's still got the big borders and things like that, it's not a great way to introduce them to Apple, and I think that in my opinion, is a problem. I don't think that's the way that we should be introducing people. The other thing that this phone has been used for in the past is it is a great, business phone. So if you are a company that is giving out company phones to your employees and they need to be able to use it while at work, it's not a bad thing to do. However, like for my employer, they are now giving out iPhone 12s, and this is at $599, I think, US dollars. We might as well talk in dollars because that's what the majority of the world will use, and it's better for comparing than using pounds, where things have gone kind of all over the place this year because our economy was ruined by Truss. So I think the iPhone 12 is probably now a better phone for people to use as that kind of entry level, and I think what we've heard about the iPhone SE potentially getting the iPhone XR's design would be great, but it also seems like that might not be happening now, so who knows. It's a C product, it's not that great. Next up, what else did we have at that event? We had the iPhone Air 5 with M1 inside, which was very exciting. It was the first time that we would get iPad Air with an M series chip. I'm going to put it into B, and everyone said, what's the point of having an M series chip in there? Turns out that obviously when we got WWDC a little bit later on, which we'll be talking about shortly, that meant that it is capable of doing Stage Manager. It's capable of doing Stage Manager, which basically gives it the option of doing multiple displays and multiple apps on the screen at a time, which, fine. I'm going to put it in B. It finally got the center stage camera as well, which I have the previous version of the iPad Air, and it was the last iPad that didn't have center stage. Even my kids' 9th gen base iPads have that, and obviously we'll mention a 9th gen iPad a little bit later as well when we come to the end of the year. Yeah, it's great. It's a decent value. I think it's a little bit too expensive these days, but there we go. That's where that lives. Next up, what else did we get? We got the Studio Display and the Mac Studio. So we'll do the display first. I know that a lot of people that have actually got this and are using it say that it's very much worth the money. I think that $15.99 for what is basically an iMac panel, from 2013, 2014. I think it's too expensive because the iMacs with the whole computer inside at this point had also got, a whole computer for an extra basically $200, and I think $2,000 they ended up at, something like that. But I feel like it's too expensive for what it is. If you want to have one of these studio displays, do go and see what Luke Miani's done.
This display panel is largely the same as this one. So what if instead of spending $1,600 on the studio display, we convert this iMac into a studio display?
That seems like a much better value way of doing these things. But, if you want a very tidy, easy solution from Apple directly, yeah, it's a good monitor. It's not as good as the Pro Display XDR, but it's also not $6,000. So, yeah, I think C seems to fit pretty well. But then we come to the Mac Studio itself, which obviously has the option of the M1 Max and the M1 Ultra inside it. And that's got to be at least a B. I think it's probably an A. I think the Max is the sweet spot for this. By all accounts, the Ultra kind of gives you about 30%, 40% more performance, not 100% more than the Max, even though it is two Maxes. And that's basically because of, you know, some limitations on the inside. It also costs twice as much, so it doesn't seem like the Ultra is, you know, the bargain version. However, Saad, who has done our renders for years, right since the beginning of the channel, is using an Ultra Studio, and he loves it. So I'm not going to put it quite into God tier, into S tier. However, A tier, I think... Yes, this is basically Mac Pro performance for a lot less money, a lot less space on your desktop, far less power consumption, and yeah, it's a good product. We like it. Okay, I think we're going to move into WWDC, which is the 16th of June 2022.
Good morning and welcome to WWDC.
What did we get announced? Obviously, we got iOS 16 and iPadOS 16. They're not exciting releases, I don't think. There's a few nice little features in there.
Now, let's talk about iOS.
I'm going to definitely put it in the B tier. Obviously, we've had actually more features added since. We did get the great new lock screen customization, which is very nice. We've also got things like Apple Music Sing now, which is actually really good. I do like that. That's quite a good use of the neural engine. I assume is the neural engine that it's using to remove the lyrics from the songs, and I think that's pretty good. iPadOS 16, less exciting. Obviously, we got Stage Manager, we got a couple of other bits and bobs. It's a fine release. There's nothing super groundbreaking about it. There's also nothing really to complain about. It's not ruined anyone's phones. B seems about right for this. macOS Ventura. Now, apparently, we're supposed to be getting some big improvements in gaming with this, but I haven't seen them yet. I'm thinking we probably go into B because a lot of people have been very upset by the Settings app for some reason. I personally think it is a massive improvement from what we've had in the past. So I actually quite like the new Settings app. However, I know a lot of people don't. A lot of people are not that impressed by it. That's absolutely fine. For me, this is at least a solid B. It's not exciting, but it's a fine release. There's been no issues with it from my side. We also obviously had WatchOS 9, tvOS 16, both of which are meh. I would put them in the same category. The software this year has been fine. It's just not done anything that's really rocked my world, or I don't think anyone else's. Now, we need to talk about the MacBook Pro 13-inch with M2, and this one... It's D tier. What is the point in this thing? It's, by all accounts, when it first came out, everyone was complaining that it overheated more than the M1. I don't think that's actually true. I think that was basically people making up lies so that they could get more views on YouTube. Come at me, Vadim. Don't care. Yes, you can find ways of overtaxing it, but you can do that with basically any chip in the world. However... I think one of the more impressive releases, I just don't think that this MacBook Pro has a reason to be now. The MacBook Pro should start with the 14-inch and the 16-inch, and that should be your 2000s M1 Pro and up. That makes the most sense. This is not a MacBook Pro, this is a MacBook that still has the touch bar and nobody wants it. However, with exactly the same chip inside, but without the fan and with a nice new design, rather than sort of the very legacy design of this MacBook Pro, is the MacBook Air M2, and this is my daily driver now, and it is God tier for me. Now, the reason that I'm putting this into God tier, into S tier, is because, number one, it's completely silent all the time. Obviously, it's fanless. It's never struggled in any way for me in terms of performance. Right now, as we're recording this, I have Photoshop on the go, I've got a Twitter thread going, I've got both Safari and Chrome on the go for some reason. Not really sure why I've got those, but I tend to keep my work stuff in Chrome and my day-to-day stuff in Safari, because I prefer using Safari anyway, but work likes Chrome, so that's fine. Everything lives in G Suite. So for me, this has never struggled, even in Final Cut, with whatever I've been doing. Absolutely zero issues with the thing. It's absolutely gorgeous. I've got the midnight color. We did a whole video about how that was going to definitely scuff up in terms of the finish on it. And I'm going to have to eat my words because it still looks absolutely mint. Yes, you get a little bit of kind of oil look on the surface of it, but that's just what that colour shows. It's not really Apple's fault, I don't think. But I'm still glad that they made this colour, because damn, it's hot. We are moving on to the September 7th event. This is the iPhone event. This is the big one of the year, every year.
Good morning. We're so glad you could join us.
And we started off with a lot of watch stuff this year. So we're going to start off with the Apple Watch SE, which it's mid. Let's be honest. Sam Cole, I've stolen mid from you. That's what's happening now. It's mid. It's basically just an updated chip on the Apple Watch SE. There's nothing more really to say about it. I use the Apple Watch SE, but the first generation one had it since the day it came out. It's a bit scratched up, but it's still working absolutely fine. There's no reason for me to update to it, and I don't think that's really the point either. I don't think anyone is buying the new SE when they had the previous SE unless they've literally smashed it to pieces. But it is nice that if you're coming into Apple's ecosystem now, you're going to get a couple of years more recent chip, and you're going to have a little bit more life left in it, so there's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. Next up, we have Series 8 Apple Watch, which I'm going to put in C, purely because they did nothing with it, really. There's no new chip, there's no new display, there's no new anything, as far as I can tell, that has really changed about this from the Series 7. It's got that nice new display. It is better than the SE as a product. However, the SE is also a lot cheaper, so I think SE gets a B, this gets a C, and that's where we're going to leave it. Moving on to the Apple Watch Ultra. Now, this is the other product that everyone has kind of said is their product of the year. I don't have one. I have handled it in the Apple Store. I have played around with it a little bit. It is enormous. We were the ones that broke the fact that it was going to have that 50.5mm display, i.e. like a 1.99 inch display. I'm going to pop it into into the S tier. It's going to be top tier, because I think everyone that's bought it has loved every second of it. I haven't heard of anyone that's been disappointed once they've got it. It does add new functionality. It adds the longer battery life. It adds the action button, which I think we might see come to some of the other Apple Watches in future. I think we might see this customizable button come. I never thought I'd say that Apple is going to add customizability to its products in the way that they have with this, but they have, and people love it. It's S tier. It's probably one of the best new products that Apple has released for a long time. Unfortunately, we can't say that about the iPhone 14, which is definitely dropping down here into the D tier, down with the MacBook Pro 13-inch, and for exactly the same reason. It should not need to exist. This is a product that is basically the iPhone 13 with car crash detection, which seems very much like a software feature that they have forgotten to just update onto the others. So we can't really give it much more than that. There's very little that's actually new to this product. Sorry, it gets to stay there. iPhone 14 Pro, however, and the Pro Max, I'm going to put into A tier. Now, it's not the best phone that Apple has ever... Well, it is the best phone that Apple has ever released, obviously. It's not the biggest leap. The Dynamic Island is a nice touch. Is it revolutionary? No. Is it a nice way of incorporating the fact that we have to have sensors in the front of the phone in order to have Face ID and decent cameras? Yes. The camera system on it is awesome. That's what we're filming this show on right now. I'm hoping that it looks okay, because I can't actually see, because normally I would use continuity camera because I'm also screen recording and things like that. Today, not so much. So I'm hoping that this looks okay. Otherwise, I'm going to eat my words about the cameras. But A tier, nonetheless, it is a great phone. Very, very happy with it. Had it since the launch day. I've gone for the Pro instead of the Pro Max this year, and I'm not really missing the bigger display. I've got to say, it fits in my pocket better. That's a win. Then we have AirPods Pro 2. This is Apple's sort of next generation of AirPods Pro. 3 years since the last one, so where do we put this? I mean, it's not a massive difference from the previous generation. I think it's at least a B. It's probably an A. It has got the better active noise cancellation. It has better battery life. It has the ability to charge from the Apple Watch puck, which I still maintain should in fact be called MagSafe Mini. Just makes sense to me. But you can charge it on MagSafe or the Apple Watch puck, or with a lightning cable for now. Obviously next year potentially going to move up to a USB-C. But yeah, it's a fine product. There's nothing wrong with it whatsoever. And then, instead of getting an October or November event, we got some press releases. We got, of course, the much hated iPad 10th generation. Now, I'm not 100% sure where to put this. I think it's probably going to be C. It's not as bad as the iPhone 14 with its no updates at all. It is a new generation. It is a new design. It does have much better colours. It does have the landscape camera. But then they kind of ruined it by putting the Apple Pencil 1 in there. I know a lot of people hate it for having a non-laminated display, but that is definitely on purpose. That is definitely there for the reasons of being able to maintain it a lot easier than you can with the laminated displays, because if you crack this, and bear in mind that this is the one that most schools will probably be buying, and colleges to have as kind of faculty devices, if you crack that laminated digitizer, when it does have the display attached to it, you're replacing the whole display and the digitizer. As it is, you can replace just the digitizer, you can keep the LCD, and that massively reduces repair costs, whether you're sending it to Apple or doing it yourself. And obviously in schools, many of them will have a tech department who are able to do that sort of thing. Now, just to give you a little bit of perspective, my kids both have 9th generation iPads from last year, which I do think is still the value option. $329 as opposed to $449, I think it is on this. And within about a month, one of them had a cracked digitizer. I was able to take it off, replace it with a brand new one from eBay. It cost me $20-something to get that replacement, and a couple of hours of my time, whereas a brand new digitizer with the LCD would have been around about $180, about half the price of the device. That is a massive difference, and that makes a huge difference to people. Next up, we have the iPad Pro. This is the M2 version. These came out, I guess, this was October as well. These were all released at the same time. I'm going to put it in B. It's still annoying that we only have the 12.9 inch that has the mini LED displays, whereas the 11 inch gets relegated to basically having the same display as the iPad Air, apart from having ProMotion. So it's got that speed advantage of up to 120 Hz display refresh rates, but also I still can't see that myself, having even got the iPhone 14 Pro now. I don't see any difference between that and the iPhone 12, so, you know, is refresh rate a big deal? Not to me. Maybe to you, your mileage may vary. But the M2 Inside it, at the time when it was released as well, people were not that worried. However, obviously we've got things like DaVinci Resolve now for the iPad, which does make it a little bit more powerful, and it can take advantage of that a bit. I would love to still see Apple bring their own first-party video creation apps to the iPad Pro, things like Final Cut. Obviously we've got iMovie in there, and it's a fine product, but it's, again, not going to set the world on fire. It's very much consumery, whereas Final Cut would be a little bit more powerful. LumaFusion obviously is the other option there for video editors. And then finally we have the 4K Apple TV. This is the 3rd generation. Now there's 2 different versions of this again, and I kind of want to put it in A tier because it's got the Thread stuff built into it, but only if you buy the more expensive one. That's when you get Ethernet on it, you get more storage, you get Thread. So that is basically if you want to have that as your home hub. I guess the other version of it with less storage and without Ethernet and without Thread is basically if you want to have additional ones for your home. If you're going to do home automation, you want the more expensive one, but you only need one of those in your home for it to all kind of work. So I think this is a decent spread. We've actually got 2 in S, and then we've got a little bit of a bell curve going on there for great stuff versus terrible stuff that Apple's released. Please don't buy an iPhone 14. There's really no reason to. You can just go and get the iPhone 13 for less money, and you've got the same device, let's be honest. You get some slightly different colours. I guess that's about as different as it gets. But the more important thing on this video is, what do you guys think? I think this is a good way to kind of round up the year. We will be talking in my next video about what we're expecting for 2023, so don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you can see that. Thank you to all of my Patreons for being subscribers, and obviously if you want to subscribe as well, I'd be very happy for you to do that. And if you join as a subscriber and you ring the notification bell, put hashtag notification squad down in the comments section, and I'll give you a shout out in the next video I make. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Want the latest Apple news, leaks and rumours? Subscribe and ring the bell.